329, lesson 330, and lesson 331. So we're doing a little bit of a catch-up as I've been on a little bit of a trip. So my apologies for being behind again. Right now, what we're learning in Sefer mitzvahs are primarily laws regarding mitzvahs regarding redemption, or not, excuse me, redemption, rebellion. Hopefully we all have redemption and we're not in rebellion, but so this is dealing with rebellion. So first of all is positive commandment 174, which comes from Deuteronomy 17:11, which says, according to the Torah which they shall teach you. So this is a very key, a very important verse that we're commanded in the Torah to follow whatever the Sanhedrin says. So if the Sanhedrin says, for instance, like a holiday is done on this day, or if you're outside the land of Israel, you have to have 2 days for what would normally be a 1-day holiday, or if they say you can't eat chametz after a certain time on the day before Passover, like before the Seder starts, and all of these things, if like they say, you have to pray a certain way, etc. Those things are not negotiable. Those things are required by the Torah, according to Deuteronomy 17:11. It says that you should listen to whatever the Torah that they tell you. So meaning whatever they tell you is Torah. They can't, add to or take away from the Torah, but that also includes the oral traditions of the Torah as well. They can't add to or take away from those oral traditions. They can put in fences that keep you or protect you from breaking a biblical mitzvah, and those fences are covered by that Deuteronomy 17:11, which says that that according to the Torah which they shall teach you, you shall do. So then Deuteronomy 17:11 goes on to give us the next commandment. So that was a positive commandment, meaning you should do. Now we have a negative commandment derived from the same verse, because that verse goes on to say, you shall not deviate from what they tell you. So we're forbidden to dispute the rulings of the Sanhedrin, of that era, that when that court existed, now 2,000 years ago, that we still follow those things, and any rabbinic command or anything like that is not adding to those things. It's merely interpreting those things in a modern context, or in in a specific context, etc. So we're forbidden to dispute the rulings of the sages or of the Sanhedrin, who were the transmitters of the tradition of how you would keep the Torah, and to deviate from their rulings with all that pertains to Torah law. Keep in mind, a lot of people now, they say, oh, I think I know what the Bible means. I have the Holy Spirit. It tells me, how to understand this or whatever. But we're not just talking about, Bible. It's not just, Bible and you understanding and you having a happy life. We're talking about actual laws that governed an actual society in Jerusalem for for the 1500 years or so that the Sanhedrin was in place, and so now we extend and we still obey what they said in Judaism. We still obey what they said, but in a modern context. Um, but so I think I've covered that fairly well. Moving on to the next mitzvah is negative commandment 3:13, which says, "You shall not add to it." Um, so that's from Deuteronomy 13:1. So we're forbidden to add anything to the Torah, both the Torah that is written and the oral traditions regarding the Torah that go back, um, you know, not recent oral traditions, anything like that, but oral traditions that go back to Moses is the idea. Like, for instance, Moses says that you should wear. It says you shall bind them as a sign in your hand. They shall be as frontlets between your eyes, or totafot between your eyes. What does that mean? How do you do that? And so the Torah is explained in the oral tradition because there was a context, a cultural context, a national context. So you're not allowed to, and no rabbi can add to the Torah as it was written, and they can't add to the even the oral traditions. Those are as they were from long ago, and they cannot be added to. So, like, for instance, we have explanations on like what tefillin are, the phylacteries that Jewish men wear, and in those, in the head compartment, there are four passages, four scrolls that are in there, in four separate compartments, and those passages are allowed, or excuse me, they're there might be some dispute maybe about like exactly what's written in there. There generally there isn't. There's these four passages, but let's say somebody came along and said, "Well, I really like the Ten Commandments. I think I'm gonna say that we should all start putting in the Ten Commandments." That would be adding to the Torah, or deciding that you want to remove one. That would be the next. That's Deuteronomy 13:1 also says you should not subtract from it. So we're forbidden to subtract anything from the Torah, both the written or the oral laws, and that's not just the average person. No Jewish person can add to or take away from the written or the oral Torah, and only the Sanhedrin is able to really interpret that in the truest sense. Everybody else is simply applying what they said, 1,500 or 2,000 years ago plus, and putting it into a modern context. All right. For yesterday, we had 4 commandments. So that is day 330. We're starting out with negative commandment 3:18. By the way, what is a negative commandment? A negative commandment is something that we're not allowed to do. Thou shalt not. And so this commandment is the command not to curse a parent. It's forbidden to curse a parent, even if have already passed away. Not allowed to curse a parent. And there was also a mitzvah previously that you were not allowed to curse a deaf person. So you're not allowed to curse anyone. You're certainly not allowed to curse a someone who's deaf. But what that means is that even if somebody is never going to know or they're never going to hear that you curse them behind their back, or they're deaf and they just didn't hear it in the first place, you're not allowed to curse them. And then there's an extra commandment not to curse a parent. So somebody who cursed their parent would be breaking multiple commandments, and perhaps not even just two. In any case, negative commandment 319 now is the negative commandment not to hit a parent. So this prohibition, there's no specific verse written in the Torah, but there is a punishment that is written that says, "Whoever strikes one's father or mother shall be put to death." So very serious one. That would of course only be done during the time of the Sanhedrin, and as far as I know, I don't think that ever happened. But there is that verse stating the punishment. So it's an interesting thing that there's a command, or there's a punishment, but there was never a command. And so we derive from that punishment that there is a command, but there is no verse specifically stating that you're not allowed to hit your parents. But if you do, just know there's a consequence. Positive commandment 210, honoring your parents. This comes from Exodus 20, verse 12. Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long, etc. So we're commanded to honor our parents. This means to serve them food and drink, be hospitable to them, help them dress when they're older and they have trouble getting dressed, or supporting them, when they need help walking, etc. These are all ways that we're commanded to honor our parents. I have a book on my shelf about the commandment to honor your parents, and it's a big, thick one with lots of details, lots of different ways that we are supposed to be honoring our parents according to the traditions. Leviticus 19:3 gives us our positive commandment 211, which says, "Every man shall revere his, or respect or fear his mother and father." So we're commanded to revere our parents, and that we should think of them like they are like a king or something. Maybe you don't always like the king. Not that you shouldn't like your parents, but I know some people have problems with that. But revering them is that's not a prerequisite necessarily. You still have to revere them, and as someone who is able to administer punishment to you, such as a king. So treating them with respect. This mitzvah includes not sitting in their chair, and unless they specifically say you can sit there, not voicing your opinion in their presence, not contradicting them, and there's many other things. And some of these ones are, it's like it's in the Big Ten, but are still, some of the more difficult commandments are the ones that sound the simplest. All right. Uh, Now on to today. So these are the commandments for today. Day 331. Negative commandment 195 is from Leviticus 19:26. This one is interpreted from these words, and it's kind of an interesting interpretation, um, but it does make sense. The This is a mitzvah not to be gluttonous regarding food and drink. And it's derived actually from a surprising verse, Leviticus 19:26, which says, "You shall not eat over the blood." And so this is interpreted to mean not to eat in a manner that will cause uh, death. Like it's an unhealthy manner. Like you're eating beyond what is normal and healthy for you. Um, or drinking. These are uh, gluttonous, and that is, according to this mitzvah, that is forbidden. And then next, positive commandment 37. This is our last mitzvah for today. And it's derived from Leviticus 21:3, and I'm just reading a part of the verse. It says, "For his sister he must become impure." What are we talking about? We're talking about a priest's attendance of their close relative's funeral, because normally a priest is not supposed to get or to become unclean by the impurity that's imparted to them by a corpse. And we talked about corpse impurity quite a while ago, and we talked about it very thoroughly. So you can go back into the playlist and find that one if you want to have more information on it. So a priest is not supposed to become impure by a corpse, but they're commanded to do so regarding their next of kin. So since the Torah normally forbids priests from becoming impure through contact with a corpse, one might think that the allowance for them to attend the funeral of a relative is simply to provide them with that option, but it is not compulsory. Therefore, the Torah clarifies not only can they, it's mandatory. As the Talmud related that Yosef, the parents, the priest's wife, died on the eve of Passover. So there was a high priest, and his wife died on the night before Passover, and he didn't want to become impure by attending her funeral, so that he should be able to sacrifice and eat the Paschal offering. I should state that I'm not positive that he was a high priest, but he was a priest. So that the sages pushed him and forced him to become impure, because he was supposed to, according to the mitzvah. But I don't know about this Yosef, but there were quite a few instances where there were priests who were Sadducees, and Sadducees did not accept the Pharisaic understanding of the Bible, which the Pharisees were carrying on the traditional understanding of Scripture, whereas the Sadducees were more modern in their thinking. So included in this mitzvah is the general obligation that everyone, priests and Israelites alike, mourn the deaths of their next of kin. So it extends beyond just the priest. If a priest is supposed to become impure for the sake of their next of kin that have passed away, then certainly everyone else should be mourning their next of kin. And it is because of the priest's obligation to mourn that the Torah obligates him to attend the funeral and to show his respect. According to the Torah law, the mourning period is 1 day following the burial. And the sages, however, extended this to a 7-day period of mourning, so a full week. All right. So that is it. Those are the 3 lessons for the last 3 days. And with God's help, we'll be back with one more mitzvah tomorrow regarding the high priest and his purity concerns. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I hope you learned something. And God bless. Have a good night. And with God's help, we'll be back tomorrow. Bye bye.